Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports for the first time in high definition. Hi, I'm Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. I believe it was Jimmy Carter who in an interview said, life isn't fair. And there's no question our coverage of high school sports is not fair. It's incomplete. We don't recognize the teams that have been outstanding, and we hope to redress some of those wrongs. First, girls gymnastics. Undefeated on the season, coached by Denise Valdez, with outstanding captains in Annalisa DeBarry and Julia LeMakin. We don't know anything about girls gymnastics, but we do know that they scored the highest point total in years with over 142 points in a recent meet, and they're having another wonderful season en route to another Middlesex League championship.
Yeah, I've been watching them on TV, Channel 15. They're 5-0 in the league, and they're 6th in the state. Is it I don't know if it's Division II or the whole state, but they're rated 6. So, I mean, again, they're having just a great season. And I watched the Barry because of last year, and she's just as strong, even better.
Right, and one of the problems we have is we don't know all the athletes. So there's no question that deserving, outstanding athletes don't get mentioned because we don't know who they are. At least we're not mispronouncing their names.
Yeah, watch Channel 15. I mean, they're on almost every night now. They have, which is good. They have the boys hockey, girls hockey, and they have gymnastics on just about every night.
And speaking of boys hockey, they're having another outstanding year under the direction of Coach Mirasolo. We've seen the tail end of some games as we've been doing the girls' game to follow, and the team seems very strong this year, physically stronger as the players are older, a lot of players returning. And they played some really tough competition, including Austin Prep the other night.
Yeah, they lost, I believe, 6-4, and it was a 5-4 game. And Austin Prep got an open net goal. So I mean, that's great hockey because I think Austin Prep is number 3 in the state, aren't they?
Right, and the team's 8-3-2. There are a number of other Middlesex League teams that are highly ranked, such as Winchester and Burlington, Reading. So, I think the hockey team's having another wonderful season. A lot of the players from the hockey program moved in straight from football.
Yeah, and the girls hockey team is having a great year too.
Right.
They're 6-3. They've gone up against some real good teams. They haven't played Reading yet. I think they're going to be playing Reading soon.
They're playing Reading this weekend, Saturday evening, I believe. And first-year coach Sam Rush is having a lot of success with a fine blend of experienced players with their 3 seniors, Haley Gorman, Anna Cleese, and Lauren Craig, all having very good years. They had a tough game recently against the combined Watertown-Belmont team, but overall, they're looking like an excellent shot in making the postseason.
Oh, and they have the Super 5 8th graders. I mean, they're unbelievable. I mean, the future in Melrose girls hockey is bright. I mean, with that group. I mean, and you don't even know who's behind them that didn't make it. They're 8th graders. Sure. But I mean, just look at them. I mean, we have Walsh. It's going to be, I think, another Gorman in a couple of years. Gorman is there. There's 2 Gorman sisters, and Haley Gorman is the senior, and she's having a terrific year. And Walsh kind of reminds me of her at a young age. And then you have DeFryer, Marissa, Connolly, and who am I? DeFryer. Oh, and Kroon.
Okay, right. We don't have statistics on the site, which is a pretty good website, masshighschoolhockey.com. Some of the teams have their statistics listed, like Emily LaPrette had over 20 goals already this season for Watertown Belmont. But, Haley Gorman's got to have double figures easily. She had 4 in one game.
Yeah, and I know at least 2 games she had 2 goals. So, I mean, she's been the leader of the team, I'll tell you again, though, I mean, those 5 8th graders were on it. They're on the 4 of them are on the power play.
Right. They have a nice blend with veteran leadership, young players who are very athletic, extremely good skaters, and really seem to know the game. They must have played a lot of hockey growing up.
Yeah, the 3 seniors are like big sisters to the younger girls. There's a lot of younger girls. There's freshmen, sophomore, a ton of them, some juniors. So, again, the future is really bright for that team. But I was thinking about the other day, we're big basketball fans. I mean, until really this year, and last year when we saw the boys play in a tournament, it was all about basketball.
Right.
We never followed hockey.
Well, we're not getting, for the most part, to see boys basketball again because the venues are continued this year. Not exactly sure why that policy continues. It creates smaller attendance for the girls' games, and it also must create more expenses because there's more home
Right.
games that have to be covered. Now, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
But you know what I noticed, Ron, unless I'm missing it, though, we go to a lot of the girls' games. You know, we follow them. Probably that's the number one team we follow because we know most of them, and we've been involved since our daughters played. And we always followed basketball, and we never even thought of hockey. I mean, hockey, you know, it's another world. And then now we're doing the girls' games, and it's unbelievable. You know what's a shame? You very rarely see any basketball players at the hockey games. Very rarely see any hockey players at the basketball games. It's like two different worlds. You very rarely see the families, you know, the parents of hockey players at the basketball games, parents of basketball players at the hockey games. And really, I'll tell you, people should go see these hockey teams play. And it's another world when you're there.
Well, it's very competitive. The action's fast. If people think that it's not a contact sport because it's girls, they're wrong because we've seen plenty of contact this year. And tempers flare just as they do in other sports. And, you know, the girls never back down. Both the boys and girls extremely competitive, very athletic, just very fun to watch.
I don't know if it's because it's new for me, so, you know, going to watch the girls' hockey team play. But, I mean, it's a shame that more people don't go just to see it in person.
And we don't know the players, we don't know the families, so it's not that we don't have a big personal connection for the most part, but it's good to see, and it's great to see that teams have success.
Right, in the last game against Watertown Belmont, no one was there. And it's a shame that people aren't, you know, their classmates aren't experiencing it and supporting them. I mean, you get the basketball games, there's not as many now as there used to be when the teams were really strong. But when the big girls were really strong, I mean, the place was packed. But you got a talented hockey team here. Even the boys. Boys have a few more that follow them. But it's kind of a shame that, you know, that
Well, and boys basketball has done well. They're 7-5. Again, we haven't seen the team because we're with the girls program. So I really don't want to dismiss any of the players and give credit to others. We know that the players who are expected to do well are doing well. Coach Kasperzak's done a great job. The defense has been great. The scores are low, and they're doing it all without Franz de Perot, who there was some suggestion in the paper that he might be back for the postseason, assuming the team gets to the postseason.
Well, if he's back, they're going to be one of the favorites then, because they'd be the best team in the Middlesex League right now with him. I mean, he was the MVP last year.
Right.
They're playing really well now. They lost a tough game to Watertown by 2, and I read that the free throw shooting was bad in that game. They should have won it. They played a good game against St. John's Prep and lost a close game. Those were their 2 losses last week. They came back and beat Lexington yesterday, I believe. So.
Right, and girls basketball is really struggling. First-year coach Lindsay Shanahan and her staff have working on a 10-game losing streak, and you know the team's just having trouble holding on to the ball as much as anything. You know, I try to view basketball as a challenge of 2 phases. One is scoring efficiency, but second is possession efficiency. You cannot score without the basketball. The other team obviously scores with the basketball. So you've got to maximize your possession by avoiding turnovers. There's been multiple games this year with over 40 turnovers, and it isn't attributable to any one player. It's, you know, sort of systemic accountability. And if you say, how can you manage to reduce turnovers, I can say our freshman girls who are freshmen during the summer had a game where they had 8 turnovers in a varsity AAU game. So there's a way to deal with it.
Against the Mass Elite team that had they had like 6 all-league players on that team, and we beat them in that game. And it was just because, I mean, you know, to be fair, the girls we had were together for 4 years.
Right.
And this was after the 4 years. We're playing in the summer, and they had maximized. I mean, they could just go up against any team and shut them down because they were just so good defensively. You know, they had an identity, especially on defense, and you just didn't get near the basket with them. But they all knew what their jobs were, and that's the problem. Now you got to mix them up with other classes, and it's not fair to the other classes too.
Sure.
You know, you want to mix them up, and you want to get that identity back, and you know, we see it. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows the game, the high school game, especially girls basketball, as well as we do. I don't think there is a person who does and knows what has to be done with the whole program. But I remember, you want to get back. I remember talking before the summer, again, I bring it up, and I remember talking to the athletic director, and I told her exactly what should be done with the program and not to lose out on these different seasons if you want to get the program back. Well, one of the things that I'm seeing that is very, very, very disappointing is it's almost like you're picking the freshman team. I mean, I told Pat this. I said, Pat, the number one thing, because most people know I applied for the job, and the one thing that I was upset most about was not getting the job, was not being in the Final Four and seeing some people that Pat put in the Final Four that didn't know the game at all, that she had in the Final Four. And, what I'm seeing, and I told her, I said, it's very important that every player, from the best player in the varsity to the last player picked on the freshman team, is treated equally. Freshman team's not treated equally. How are they treated equally? They got uniforms that don't even match. They got they got red shorts. They got old uniforms where every player in the program should have the same uniform. If the varsity's getting brand new uniforms, you don't give last 10 years where the varsity was using certain uniforms. Some teams have had it for like 5 up to 10 years. You don't give the JVs their uniforms, and then down to the freshman team, give them the worst uniforms. If you're going to get new uniforms for the varsity, you make sure everybody's got new uniforms. And you treat everybody equally. I haven't seen any of the coaches, other than the freshman coach, at their games. I don't see them. Where do I see them? So you got a freshman group there, and then on top of it, they go 5-5. Worse than the recreation league. All right, you 5 are starting, and then after 4 minutes, you 5 go in. So it doesn't mean if someone like Bella Federico, who should be battling for the varsity, who's on the freshman team, who's saying, okay, doesn't matter how you play, you're only playing 5 minutes, then you're going to sit out for 5 minutes because that's the way we're doing it. What does that tell the girls on the freshman team?
Well, you're right. It sends a message that you're a second-class citizen, that you're not being seriously considered for development longer term. And anybody who follows basketball knows that players develop at different rates with different degrees of coaching. I'm fond of talking about a player who I played with in high school in Wakefield. He was on the freshman B team, ultimately got a scholarship in college to play basketball, and outplayed the Celtics #6 draft choice from St. John's Prep in Boston Garden. And here's a kid who was not even on the freshman A team. Aside from that, was an outstanding student, and he's a vice president of a major corporation now. That shows you the kind of individual that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and just talking about, again, there are other girls on the team that deserve to be treated on the freshman team, as well as Bella, Katie, and Shannon. But those are the 3 girls we had. And again, you keep bringing up, just think of this. Just think of this. Those 3 girls last year played on a team that beat the #1 freshman team in the Middlesex League that had only 1 loss by 1 point and beat every other team by 20 points. They played on a team that beat that team that only had 1 loss big. They dominated that team. So now what happens? The next year, they're playing down against worse competition because they're beating everybody, and they're being treated like, okay, you go in for 4 minutes. Okay, you go in for 4 minutes. It doesn't matter how you play. So how do they feel that they're getting better? How's the progression getting better there?
Kevin Elko wrote a book called True Greatness, and he has something called the Pyramid of Greatness. And at the bottom of the pyramid is vision. You have to have an idea of what your program is going to look when it's successful. Second, and I think most important, is process. You need a process to deal with the areas of strength and weakness, to overcome your weakness, to emphasize your strength, and to constantly see player development into the areas that you're going to emphasize. Third, you need to encourage the players along the way. And however you do that, that's very much coach specific. And fourth, you need to inspire the players. You have to say, this is what you're shooting for, and this is where we're going to be in a few years. And at the top of the pyramid is true greatness. And my son works with a guy who manages money. People love their money. And the guy's motto is, no losing months. He's in it to make money for his clients, his partner. And I think that's a great motto. If we had a motto on the athletic teams, no losing months, that would really work out well for us too. And we really believe that the team is potentially better than they've been able to show. I think that Ashley Harding's done a good job rebounding. For example, she had 12 rebounds last night. Katie Sullivan's not seeing the ball very much, but she's been pretty effective down low when she's actually getting it.
Well, that's another thing. You have Katie Sullivan, and I will look at her. I talked to her just for a minute last week about, about the game where she was dominating early and she didn't get the ball again. I said, you got to talk to your teammates. You've been in the program for this your third year. Talk to your teammates. Tell them, hey, listen, I can overpower this girl. Look for me when I go down low, when I have my hand up. I mean, they have to communicate better. But one thing I'd have to say is that, like, Jill McGinnis is just, you talk about heart. Jill McGinnis has given everything she has out on the floor, and she's been the leader. But, it's too bad for Jill because she needed that other, Jill is the type of player who needs a superstar to play with. Like Kelly. Mm-hmm. They don't even have a girl close to Kelly. But Jill would even be that much better. I mean, it's not fair to say to Jill, you're going to lead this team in scoring, passing. She's not that type of player. She's a hard-nosed player. But there are other talented players over there.
Well, Sarah Foote's made progress. She's a good shooter, off the spot. She
had that great pull-up jump shot from the baseline.
Right. She had a number of steals last night, 4 steals to go along with 8 points. She's clearly playing better basketball. So there are bright spots that we're seeing, but overall the synthesis of the team into a cohesive, productive, highly competitive unit just really hasn't come about yet.
Well, I don't see them. They're working hard. The parents are behind us, and they're still in it. They're really rooting for their kids.
We want to see the team win.
Yeah. The kids are working hard, but you have the problem. The problem you have there is you don't have that one person who can take the pressure off you. But they got to come together. Don't have, like Kelly was amazing yesterday. But what did I tell you in the fourth period? When Kelly, I said the key here going into the fourth period. Well, in the third period, Kelly had 4 fouls. I have 3 fouls. I said she's got to pick up her 4th foul if Melrose is going to win this game. It was a close game there. You think the coaches were telling the girls, it's very important let's take it to her. What they were doing is trying to throw the ball past her. She was stealing and going in for layups. But you would think they would get the ball get the ball inside the 3-point line to the girl who she's covering and let her take it. If you can pick up that 4th foul, you can win this game. If you don't pick up the 4th foul before the 4th period, what did I say to you? They don't even know what's going to be coming. I told you during the game, I said, they don't even have an idea what's coming here with
For
Kelly.
those who were not at the game, which obviously will be most of our viewers, Lexington came up with a 24-2 run in the last 5 or 6 minutes to win the game, just mostly by Anna Kelly from their outstanding point guard. Just outstanding effort. The girl can really take the ball to the basket. Anyway.
But the girls are playing. They're working hard. You have to admit that.
Absolutely. The girls are playing hard. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Paul Rabel from the Boston Cannons, and you're watching Let's Talk Sports.
Welcome back. Well, the Patriots season is over. Some people would call it a disappointment, but I don't think that in view of the numerous injuries that the team had and the struggles that they overcame, that you can call it a disappointment. It is disappointing to see any season end, and it's interesting we're seeing some turnover in the ranks of the Patriots assistant coaches now for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, what Scarnecchia is too old. Well, not too old, but he's 65. He said it's time to go, and he was a great offensive coordinator. But they'll get someone. They'll get someone who's just as good, maybe even better, maybe even, different ideas.
Right, and Pepper Johnson, who's worked with the linebackers for a long time, a lot of people feel that he got passed over for the defensive coordinator job by Matt Patricia and that he decided to leave on that score in order to try to advance his own career. And you can't argue with that either.
Yeah, Belichick's not stupid. He felt that he didn't deserve the job. He couldn't count on him, to lead the defense. And Pepper Johnson you knew he was upset about it. Now I don't even know if he has a team right now to go to.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up on Texas with Bill O'Brien.
Oh, and Cornell.
And Cornell, right.
Cornell's the defensive coordinator over
So that's
there.
a real possibility. Is people tend to stick with people they know best. Obviously, the Patriots went out to Denver and pretty much got manhandled by the Broncos, but there was some controversy in that game, and we want to talk about that. The NFL has paid a lot of lip service to player safety in order to try to prevent hits on defenseless receivers, defenseless kickers, for example. limiting contact to the quarterback at times. And the issue has come up as to whether Wes Welker took an illegal and/or cheap shot at Aqib Talib, knocking him out of the game and effectively, hamstringing the Patriots' defensive backs.
Well, I'm one of the few people. Forget offensive pass interference. It should have been a personal foul, 15-yard penalty, and maybe throw him out of the game. That's the feeling I have. Because anybody who says that it wasn't intentional, anyone who says that it wasn't offensive pass interference doesn't know what they're talking about. The NFL is even saying that it wasn't offensive pass interference. There was no penalty on that play. What are they thinking about? The rule says that until someone touches the ball, you cannot impede either the end, defense can't impede the end, or an offensive player cannot impede the defensive player.
Well, I think you can
until the ball is touched.
I think you can trust the National Football League public relations machine about as much as you can trust Argentine currency. Obviously, the NFL is interested in speaking with one voice to promote the product and make sure that they're getting that $10 billion coming in. A judge recently ruled that the head injury settlement was insufficient to cover the players who are likely going to have claims in the future, and that's going to be going on forever.
But that was a joke, though, Ron. It was a joke. Phil Simms and Nance were doing a game. Not one of them said anything about it. Now, have you ever, in all the years you've been watching football, have you ever seen a cornerback covering a receiver? The ball is in the air. I don't care how close it was to him. It was still in the air, never touched his body or his hands before Welker hit him. Have you ever seen a cornerback at level like that?
Well, he didn't
in all the years you've been watching it?
He didn't just run into Talib.
He drilled him.
As Belichick said, and we don't always have to agree with Belichick, Welker was not looking for the ball, and he threw a cross-body block at Talib.
Right, and I mean, I can't understand what these people, like these writers who hate Belichick, and I don't like Belichick either. I think he's pompous. I mean, I'm always saying, why did they even ask him a question? Because he's not going to answer it truthfully. And, half the time he's going to make you look like an idiot. So why even go into those conferences? I wouldn't even go if I was a writer, although you do have to write your article. But, I don't like Belichick. I don't like him as a person, but he's right. I mean, these people that are knocking him, I mean, just look at it. Can anybody honestly say in all the years they've been watching football? Now, forget about pick play, because this isn't a pick play we're talking. We're not talking about a pick here. They're saying the Patriots do picks all the time. We're talking about a play where a cornerback is not looking at anybody but the person he's covering. He knows that he cannot get hit until the player catches the ball. So he's not even thinking about getting hit. It's not the same thing as someone running with the ball and someone coming from the side and knocking you over, because you know you can get hit any time then. A cornerback knows he's not going to get hit until the player catches the ball. Well, he got leveled before the receiver touched the ball.
Well, there's nothing to say that the National Football League is all about sweet and nice. I happen to know the wife of a former National Football League player, and I asked her, was there anything that your husband did before the games to prepare for the game? And she said, yeah, he used to file his nails so he could gouge the receivers' faces. Well, it speaks for itself. So we're not saying the Patriots players are good, everybody else is bad. It's not that. But it's about the league enforcing the rules. I had tweeted to Mike Pereira, what is the rule for a pick play in the National Football League? Well, I didn't get any response because I don't think there's an answer. Well, we decided to pick when we decided to pick.
Well, the thing about a pick play is if there's two guys, you cut across and you want to try to have the defensive back.
Yeah, you want them to go
but
over the top.
You're not running into them. You want them to go around and behind. But teams coach that. What they do is they switch.
Right.
So, one cornerback will take the guy who's cutting across. The other guy will stay with the other guy. I mean, they teach that. But this isn't a pick play. Well, what are people thinking about?
Well, the good news is the Patriots carry over $4 million of salary cap into the next season, but they're right up against the projected cap, which is going to be near $130 million. Now, there are going to be some restructurings, no doubt. Well, Isaac Sapa-Oga, the guy who didn't play defensive tackle for the last 4 or 5 games, he's going to be gone. Yeah. You wonder what the situation will be with Vince Wilfork, because he may be asked to restructure his contract to try to move money down the line. and the Patriots are looking for relief for Aaron Hernandez's money, which is tied up, will be tied up for who knows how long.
I think they'll give him relief on that, although the NFL, they don't like the Patriots for whatever reason. Maybe because they're in the playoffs every year. I mean, for so many years, they broke that record. But, you know, the Patriots, they had, I heard before the season started, just before the season started, they were $12 million under.
Right.
So what did they spend, $8 million of that?
Well, I think they extended Ninkovich. That used
Who's
some,
overrated?
They used some of the money.
Who's way,
You know,
way overrated.
One of the issues on salary cap is obviously you try to replace a higher salaried marginal player with a lower salaried one, which is why Zoltan Mesko was gone and Ryan Allen was back. They saved $1 million, which is, you know, another $1 million you can.
Well, what are you going to do with Edelman?
Well, Edelman is one. McCourty, the question is, what are you going to do with him? Talib, another key player.
Yeah.
Blunt, you know, I don't think that Blunt's going to get $3 or $4 million from anybody.
No, he'll probably stay with them.
You know, so I think Belichick really likes Talib, and I think Talib is a pretty popular player in the locker room. So I think they'll try to work out something. He's probably not going to get top dollar, not because of his character issues, but just because he's missed some of the season every year.
They better sign Edelman, though. You know, they almost lost on him last year. They better not lose him. I mean, people, another thing that gets me about people, and they're knocking about Welker, these writers. Well, these writers, number one, most of them don't really know what they're talking about. One guy said that their offensive line is getting old. Where's their offensive line getting old? You got Solder and Vollmer, you got Cannon, you got Conley, you got Wendell. The only one who's a little old is Mankins, and he can last another 4 years. You know, offensive linemen usually last until they're 30. So where are they? And I'm saying this guy is supposed to be an expert on football. But I mean, they just don't know. I mean, they're looking at the Patriots, and they just don't see it the same way I see it.
Well, and there's a proposal to eliminate extra points, changing it to you can either run or pass for 1 point extra. But,
They should leave it alone.
But award that, well, apparently there are hardly any missed extra points anymore. I mean, every field goal inside 40 yards is almost a given.
Yeah, but
now.
you shouldn't fool around with the game like that. I mean, you're talking about points that kickers get, you know, over the years. Now you're going to change the whole thing. They're not going to be kicking point afters. I mean, I would just leave it the way it is. Sometimes
Well, they could give you an
sometimes
option.
too many changes.
You could kick an extra point from 45 yards. Or,
Yeah, maybe
you know.
move them back even 10 yards. Make it a 30-yard point after.
Well, you know, there is a move to change the structure.
But one more thing about the Patriots I want to say. People knock Belichick about, you know, Welker, getting rid of Welker and signing Amendola. I mean, if Welker was still with the Patriots and Amendola wasn't, Edelman wouldn't be playing. Because both of them are slot receivers. What they did, they moved Amendola to split end, and Edelman played slot receiver. So if Welker was here, what would Edelman be? You can't tell me that Welker's a better football player than Edelman right now.
Well, the latter half of the season, when Dobson was reasonably healthy, he was not bad. He does appear to be able to get open.
Didn't he look good on that one reception and then Brady didn't throw to him again?
Yeah, so I'm not giving up on Dobson.
No.
I think he's got potential. Boyce, he was hurt, and it's hard to say what.
He's their speedster, too. It's a shame Boyce was hurt.
Right, so we don't really know what he can do, and it takes players a long time to learn the Patriots system for whatever reason. But
They need another tight end.
well, obviously they need a tight end because who knows what Gronkowski's future is. He keeps piling up injuries because he's getting beat on.
They can't go through another year with what they had after he went down. They can't. You have no weapon there.
Well, we had Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
Matthew Mulligan's friend, but that wasn't quite enough of a talisman for the team. Now, in other news from Crazy Town, there's the weird story of Geno Smith. Geno Smith, the Jets quarterback, was on a Virgin Atlantic flight and apparently had his headphones on listening to music, and the flight attendant told him to take off his headphones, which he didn't hear, and then she took them off and threw them on the floor, and apparently he was arrested and taken off the plane. And now, today, Virgin Atlantic publicly apologized to Geno Smith and said that he was treated shabbily as a customer. So, anyway, Geno Smith said, "I look forward to flying on Virgin Atlantic in the future." So that's the National Football League for you. There's always something crazy. Now, as for the Super Bowl matchup, I like Seattle because I just think assuming it's a cold day, which first weekend in February in New York, I think it's going to be tough. Manning doesn't throw the ball the way he used to. I mean, there was that one play, he threw a lollipop that Arrington wasn't looking on.
Well, it's going to come down to they're going to give him enough time. If he has enough time to throw, with those receivers, he's going to score. But you look at his last two games, the Patriots, even though he moved the ball, 26 points. Against San Diego, it was even less. Wasn't it 24 or something?
Right, and Seattle's defense is very physical. And
yeah, but is Seattle going to score much? Their offense, especially lately, hasn't been too good. Their quarterback, Wilson, hasn't had his last 5 games haven't been really good. So
it'll be interesting. Obviously, Peyton Manning is trying to even his number of Super Bowl wins with his brother Eli. Ostensibly, Eli is giving him tips. I don't know what that means.
Eli's giving him tips?
Yeah. And then it would be an interesting story is that Russell Wilson could be the second black quarterback to win a Super Bowl after Doug Williams years ago with the Redskins. And Wilson's a quality player, quality guy. Whether he has the experience necessary and whether receiver is necessary to win, it should be a heck of a game, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to want to watch.
Well, I'm not going to, because you know what I'm doing? I'm taping 2 of the UConn girls basketball games, and at 6:30, that's next Sunday, I'm going to watch the UConn girls play 2 games in a row.
Well, and the all-exciting Pro Bowl has a new wrinkle this year with player captains Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders basically drafting from the players selected. Rice went for offense, and Deion Sanders kind of took a different approach, drafted Jamal, what's the guy's name?
From where?
Kansas City.
Oh.
Not Thomas. Anyway, the Kansas City running back, whereas Jerry Rice took Drew Brees first. And
do you even watch the games anymore?
No, the Pro Bowl they don't
I didn't even know they still play them.
They don't even tackle each other. They just touch each other and fall down.
That's a disaster, that game.
The game always ends up being about 56-48, and
And Brady's not going again.
The worst thing about the Pro Bowl was John Stevens got hurt in the flag football game years ago and wrecked his knee after he'd
shattered it.
Right. Although his daughter is like a top 20 tennis player.
Steven? Oh, that's his daughter?
That's his daughter. So
she's real good.
So that's kind of an unusual wrinkle. Well, we'll be right back with more exciting Let's Talk Sports in high definition.
You I'm talking to. Do you know who you are? You are me, disgruntled Boston sports fan that no longer knows how to lose with any dignity. I know we're all used to losing, right? Because we grew up in Boston. We remember we are the nation that still celebrates the losing season of the Patriots like it's something great. I remember when they were 1-15. I do too. But you know what? The Pats lost to Denver because they lost to Denver. Denver was a better team. So when you call up talk radio and say, it's Belichick's fault, it's all Bill Belichick, it's all because he did this, he's a terrible GM, he forgot how to coach defense. Let me tell you, he got 12 wins out of that team, plus a playoff victory over a good, decent indie team. He ought to be coach of the year. Let me tell you. Something along the line changed in this New England area where suddenly people became entitled and became, we're supposed to win every year. And I'll tell you, all these championships, I'm not going to send them back. The Red Sox, the new car smell is still on that World Series, so damn it, I am going to appreciate it. But you know something? The Bruins, they lost to Chicago in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'll tell you, they lost to the better team. I think it was pretty universal that everyone said, well, you know, if they had gotten there a little bit healthy, yeah, if they got there a little bit more healthy. The Bruins were banged up and they lost. But you know what? People want to call talk radio and say, oh, we should have won. It was this one's fault. It's that one's fault. It's your fault. It's not my fault. And that's the common theme here. And don't get me wrong, I'm still a little bit mad that the Celtics were up by 13 in the fourth quarter a few years ago and couldn't put the Lakers away. And the first thing they said was, oh, well, if Kendrick Perkins didn't get hurt, we needed a big man. You know, he got hurt. That was the whole series. Maybe. Injuries happen. Losses happen. Are you kidding me? We can't lose? Well, guess what? We lost. All right? Denver was a better team than us. I don't really care for Peyton Manning. I think he's great in the sunshine. And you know what? The Super Bowl outside in the cold, thanks to the stupidity of the NFL, Roger Goodell, moron, Peyton Manning might fold up like a pup tent again in the cold. Who knows? And then we're going to be happy. We're going to call up talk radio and say, see, you know, if the Patriots, revisionist history, my favorite subject, if the Patriots all of a sudden were going to beat Denver, it should have been played in New England. You know, if we only beat Miami, the game would have been in New England. We would have beat Denver in the cold. Then we would have went to the Super Bowl and probably got destroyed by Seattle. And then that would have been another round of callers that probably said something along the lines of, you know, Pete Carroll wasn't that bad of a coach. And he wasn't. But I digress. Let's get back to the point. You, disgruntled Boston sports fan, doesn't know how to lose. And what, you want to call up those idiots on talk radio? By idiots, I mean the hosts who don't take your calls. You'll be on hold for 45 minutes waiting while they talk about anything having to do with nothing having to do that they're talking about. If that makes any sense to you. But again, I am as disgruntled as anyone else. After they lost to Denver, you want to know what my first thing I said was? Look how clean Peyton Manning's uniform is. They didn't touch him. How are you supposed to win a game if you can't get pressure on the quarterback? I don't blame the Patriots. They were undermanned. Yeah, injuries. They played a part. That's part of the game. But do you call talk radio and cry about it? Do you really have that little of a life that you call talk radio and start complaining about it? Come on. I mean, look at me. I'm a Boston sports fan. I sit here with my pizza, my iPad, everything else around me. I got the tube in front of me. I just want to watch the game. But when it's over, I go out and get some fresh air. I go live my life. I don't stand there like, you know. But anyway, let's get back to the point. We somehow forgot how to lose. We no longer are Boston humble sports fan that when we won that Super Bowl in 2002, after the 2001 miracle season, we beat the Rams and we said, wow, we rejoiced. We actually fell to our knees and said, we finally won a championship with a team that isn't the Celtics. It was the first time the Patriots and then the Red Sox will put aside the Aaron Boone, Pedro, Grady Little from 2003, and we won a World Series. We were humble. We were joyous. We were a nation of let's leave baseballs on graves for our loved ones who didn't get to see this glorious moment. And now we call talk radio and whine because there's a reason we didn't win another one. Get a life, all right? Pats will be back next year, probably win 12 more games. Red Sox, new car smell on that shiny World Series trophy. Are you happy? Because I am. And I look forward to it. But do it with dignity, huh?
Welcome back. The Hot Stove League is in full swing as the Red Sox make their bid to reconsolidate their position as World Championship dominating franchise that they are, signing Grady Sizemore and Willie Mays.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Sizemore might be a good pickup. I liked him. He was one of the best center fielders in baseball when he wasn't.
He was,
when
he was
healthy.
kind of like Ellsbury with more power.
He's only 31 too, so if he's healthy, who knows? They gave him $750,000. With he could make $6 million depending on how much he plays.
Well,
but
yeah.
if he's healthy again, he's going to be the center fielder.
If he
not
were
Bradley.
If he were really healthy, he'd still be playing in Cleveland probably. I don't know.
But he hasn't played in 2 years.
No, he hasn't played in a really long time. It's hard to know what he can give them, but they have a low-cost option, and
You don't know if he's on the, drugs or what.
well,
You don't know
you probably should have
nowadays.
taken him for a couple of years.
No, but you don't know nowadays. Maybe he is on them.
Well, we just don't know. Meanwhile, the Yankees added to their off-season $500 million haul
The Yanks are back.
with Masahiro Tanaka, the professor, 24-0 with 1.27 ERA. I got to assume he's a pretty good player, but he's certainly taken a lot of mega bucks from the Yankees.
The 5 A's.
Yeah, what Ralph's referring to is the last letter of the player's name. First of all, you have CC Sabathia, and if you've seen any recent pictures of CC Sabathia, he looks like Twiggy.
He lost how much? 20-something?
20-something. He must have had obesity surgery.
Well, he lost last year too some, and you look at him last year, he was terrible.
There was a picture of him with his wife, and he looked skinny. He didn't. I'm not saying he looked like an athlete. He looked skinny. He must have lost 65 pounds at least. But maybe that's going to help him. I don't know. Then you have Michael Pineda, who has been out for 2 years after shoulder surgery. Ivan Nova, quality pitcher. Hideki Kuroda, and Tanaka. So they got 5 reasonable starters. I mean, Pineda would probably be the 5 starter. Nova at 4, Kuroda 3, and Sabathia, Tanaka 1, 2, either way.
Yeah, I mean, it's an if, but they potentially could have a tremendous starting pitching staff. And with the hitting they have now, they got rid of the one person I despise, Cano. He was so overrated. I'm glad he's gone. And, with Ellsbury leading off, maybe, I don't know if they'll put Jeter second or Gardner second, and then you have Beltran be hitting third, Teixeira fourth, McCann fifth, probably Soriano sixth. I mean,
they have a very strong lineup.
And then they have, if Jeter's second, Gardner will be batting ninth. He'll be a second leadoff hitter.
And I had heard last year that the Yankees were 10th in runs scored in the American League, which seems impossible for that team. Of course, the fly in the ointment for New York fans is the team is old. I mean, they got a lot of guys who could easily break down, the Beltrans of the world. Teixeira hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while. But
they're not as old as they were, especially with A-Rod gone.
And Jeter, I don't know what he's going to be able to give you at shortstop right now. He only played 17 games last year.
Well, they have Ryan if he gets hurt.
Oh, no, I know, but Jeter, where's he going to play? Third base?
Well, he'll be all right at short. Who positions himself better than Jeter? Then he'll move him to DH once in a while.
It'll be interesting to see a shortstop in the major leagues playing with a peg leg.
No, but the thing, Ron, is say he goes down. With the hitting they have now and the pitching they have now, a terrific shortstop in Ryan. You put him right out there. He's one of the best fielding shortstops in baseball.
Might be the best fielding shortstop in the American League, including Iglesias. That's how good he is.
That's why people are saying, well, why don't the Yankees go after Drew? They're not going to go after Drew when they have Jeter and they have Ryan behind Jeter.
Well, speaking of the worst decision in the history of baseball, J.D. Drew turning down $14.1 million. He'll be lucky to get that for 2 years, never mind 1 year.
Well, he's got to hope the Mets. It looks like the Mets are going to get him, and they'll probably, like I told you, maybe $10 million for 2 years. $10 million, $20 million for 2 years, or $30 million for 3. I mean, I think that it could be in that area, especially with the way they're throwing around money nowadays.
Well, it's true. The total revenue and player contribution of that revenue is going up about $300 million. So the players, they really have to get the money somewhere. Now, for example, Clayton Kershaw, the Dodgers ace, who really is, even though he's only 25 years old, is kind of staking out Hall of Fame credentials right now. Just got a $220-something million contract for 7 years. Now, it's interesting, Lester, who's 31, has pitched about 1,300 innings in the major leagues. Kershaw's only 25, and he's pitched 1,180. So he's got a lot of mileage for a young guy. And I'm not saying the Dodgers overspent because he's terrific. Literally, he's only a few more years from Hall of Fame criteria. But it's always a lot of money and time for pitchers because they can go south pretty fast.
But it's funny, too. Today they're saying that Lester said, they interviewed Lester, and he said he'll take a discount to stay in Boston. He loves Boston. like they were saying, what's the discount going to be?
25
Well,
million a year.
I don't want 30 million, but I'll take 24, 25.
Right.
Oh, that'll go over great.
Well, my guess is that it would be 25 for 5, maybe.
And that's not worth it.
Well, the reason Lester's in a different situation is the fact that he's had cancer in the past. So he has a higher risk of second cancers, and he has a higher risk of serious infections because cancer survivors with his type of cancer have subtle immune defects, and his health may be still an issue. So, I mean, that's a legitimate concern for a team that's laying out $100+ million.
Right. So, but what's good with the Red Sox situation is that it's not this year. So they can look. I mean, if he has another great year, because he hasn't been consistently great.
No,
his career, just look at it.
He's been a 15,
very
16.
inconsistent.
Yeah, he's had the really bad year the year before with the chicken and beer crowd. He rehabilitated himself with his postseason performance last year.
Yeah, but what I talk about is when I say about inconsistent, when you're going to give out that much money, you got to be consistently great. He hasn't been consistently great. As a matter of fact, he's only been great 1 or 2 years. You would put him up in the great category.
Well,
so now he wants top 25 million for being great 2 out of 7 years?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the character of the team is this year. They're not going to win as much as they won last year. And they've got personalities. Ortiz could be crying about his contract. Victorino can be a surly guy. A.J. Pierzynski is the most hated player in baseball, at least by other teams. Johnny Gomes, you know, whether everybody's going to still love him this year, you don't know. Lackey. So they've got a lot of guys who, you know, who fit in last year, but we'll see what happens this year.
Then you're wondering what's going on. I mean, I know you don't like talking about it much with the PEDs. You got to wonder what's going on there too. Some, you know, really, I mean, it's proven that Ortiz did take it at one time.
They do test regularly, but that's not to say that there can't be players who are able to circumvent the testing somehow.
It's big time now, they're saying. You know, I don't want to get into the whole thing with that
you know,
liaison guy.
Brunn, you know, obviously he got a stiff punishment, but you know, there's no question that it affects people's performance. You can't be a Brady Anderson and go from 20 home runs to 50.
Well, how about Ortiz?
No, I mean,
going from not even being, couldn't turn on a fastball 4 years ago. Now all of a sudden he's the best hitter in baseball again.
I think that if you look at Hall of Fame voting as a standard, plenty of people are skeptical about the performance of contemporary players and the role of PEDs and going forward. Now, obviously, the home run totals are down. So, I mean, but the pitchers, we act like the pitchers couldn't have been taking steroids.
Oh, yeah, they were too. Well, look
know.
at Cologne. He was on Cologne.
Well, right, Cologne was, and most people believe Roger Clemens was, whether, you know, whether that ever
he was
gets proven
definitely
or
on it, right? When he went to Toronto. That year he started taking it.
Right,
Because
he
he
went
got
from-
pulled at the Patriots.
right.
He pulled at the Sox.
Right, he averaged 10 wins a year for 4 years, then he went to Toronto and was...
Didn't you see his body the next year? He was unbelievable.
Right.
But
so
like you say you had to vote for the Hall of Fame. Would you vote for Ortiz?
at this point, I don't think he's quite there.
No, they
know.
say he was there.
He was there because of the PED thing. I don't know. I think that guys like, even Clemens, he could have got in on his career without doing steroids. Bobby Bonds could have gotten in. He was good enough that he didn't need that. Guys like Palmeiro, I don't think he ever would have been good enough. Sosa, McGuire never would have been good enough if they hadn't done something.
Oh, yeah, Sosa and McGuire. And back then, look how much money they made for baseball. Baseball loves it that they were on it.
Right, and there are plenty of players that were on the Red Sox. We will never know whether they took anything or not, but players who bulked up and were on the cover of major sporting magazines.
Garcia Parra.
There were right fielders who got huge in a year and hit 27 home runs when they weren't really 27 home run hitters. We just don't know. And the easy thing is to say, I don't know, but I'm suspicious.
Who would you pick as the favorites in the American League?
American League. I think the Yankees right now have a pretty good lineup and, you know, pretty good pitching. The only thing they did lose a Hall of Fame closer. Robertson's a very good setup man. Whether he can dominate as a closer, I don't know. Tampa, they are, you know, I know for whatever reason I have this affinity for Tampa, but they signed Balfour today. He's a very good closer. That helped fill out their one major weakness. So
Yeah.
I think they'll be in there.
They still don't have enough hitting.
Yeah, the Red Sox, it's still about pitching. A guy like Buchholz, is he healthy or is he, remember, the year before he missed time because he was taking, I believe it was Toradol shots, which Toradol is a powerful anti-inflammatory, and he got inflammation of his esophagus. Why was he taking a Toradol? He was taking Toradol because his arm hurt.
I told you about 3 years ago. I told you the problem with Buchholz is he overthrows.
Well,
You know, and that's what he has the problems back there. His upper back, his shoulder.
now Matt Garza signed, who did he sign with? Milwaukee for $52 million for 4 years. To me, that they kind of got off cheap
Yeah.
for him. And the guy who's still out there is Irvin Santana, who they're talking about 60 for 4.
Isn't that a shame though with him, Santana? I mean, he's had problems.
So, you know, there's still plenty of money floating around. That brings us back to basketball. I want to say something about basketball analytics. Now, some people discount basketball analytics. They don't think that anything seems to mean anything anymore. Now, for example, right now, field goal defense, #1 team in the league, Indiana. Rebound differential, #2 team in the league, Indiana. Best record in the NBA, Indiana. You know, so good teams have good statistics, and just as I said before, scoring efficiency, possession. If you're winning the games by 3 or 4 points, small differences in rebounds and in shooting percentage differential translates into the simple being a great team and being a middle-of-the-road team. Now, as for the Celtics, Brad Stevens has done a remarkable job making it entertaining, keeping the Celtics in the game, and then occasionally ruining it by having a late victory like last night.
Yeah, Green had to go score. What did he score? 36?
39.
39 points. And
Presley had 5 for 6 on threes. He hasn't done that in practice yet this year.
it was a great game until they won it at the end.
But the Celtics still are in position for the #5 position in the draft, and there are at least 5 good players.
Well, they have the balls too. They can go from 5 to 1.
Right.
And then they can get knocked back.
Right.
So-
But they, you know, a lot of people are high on Kansas freshman center, 7 feet tall, Joel Embiid. He seems to have jumped the Wiggins, Randall, Parker triad. And then for some reason, there's a lot of talk about this guy, Dante Exum, who's playing in Australia, who sounds like the next coming of Michael Jordan.
They're saying that Ainge really loves this guy. And if the Celtics are in the top 6, they could get him, one of the top 6 picks. They think that he may drop down because he's from Australia,
Right.
that, you know, he may go 6, but they say Ainge really likes him. Well, Ainge probably likes about 8 people. But if it works out right, Celtics get one of those guys and then get like the 16th pick in this year's draft, they could be back. I mean, they could be definitely going in the right direction. Then they have a ton of draft picks in the next 3 years.
Well, Rajon Rondo is back. I thought he had operation on his knee, not his eyes. His shooting, he looks like he's never shot a basketball before.
But if he gets healthy, hopefully the teams that are looking at him are happy with him, with his health, because I would love to see them trade him and Green for someone, you know, comparable.
They have plenty of guys that people could have an interest in. Humphreys has been very good.
They have a number of guys.
You know, Wallace, you're probably not going to be able to get rid of.
No one's going to want Wallace.
You know, but Humphreys, Green, Bass, Rondo are all tradable guys. Now, Rondo's kind of got low salary right now. That's another selling point for him.
But just think, towards the end of the year, say, you know, towards the end of the trading, I don't know when that is. That's probably in March sometime.
I thought it was the end of February,
February.
but I'm not sure.
Say then and they're one of the worst teams, and then they make those moves and they trade Rondo and Green.
Oh, then they're definitely going to be one of the worst teams.
No, and then, I mean, just look. I mean, if in the draft they can get one of those top players, get a superstar. You need a superstar. They don't have a superstar. Anybody who thinks Rondo's a superstar is a complete idiot.
You need 3 great players to be able to compete in the NBA. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Well, you need a superstar.
Yeah, you need a superstar, but among your 3 great players.
Well, you'll get him if you have a superstar.
Yeah, right. People will come in and...
No one's going to want to play with... Forget Rondo. I mean, he's not even a star.
Well, what happens if in a couple of years they have, you know, Jabari Parker and, you know, it's a long shot, but what if LeBron James says, I'd kind of like to come to Boston?
Well, Miami's all done. They're not going to win another title I guarantee Miami will not win another title. And after this year, they're going to be going down.
Did you see the uniforms the other night?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. You know, you have Anderson, Birdman, with his tattoos and his spiky weird hairdo, and Jay Shuttlesworth from.
But I'm rooting for Indiana to win it with Bird's back as the president.
Indiana's very good. They have a real talented roster, and we just said they know how to play.
Yeah, and George is playing really good, and
Right.
he loves going up against
Now,
him.
if you said who are the core players on the Celtics that you really would like to be on the team going forward, who?
On the Celtics?
Yeah, which guys would you really like to have here?
None of them. No, really.
Olenek,
None of
how about
them.
Olenek?
Oh, Olenek.
He's
Yeah,
not-
but I mean,
he's probably more of a six-man kind
yeah,
of guy.
Olenek needs, like the first game Rondo played, he scored 20-some points. Maybe Olenek, but, I look at that team, and there's not one player on that team that I would say I want him to be there when they rebuild. You're like, like Sullinger, right? He scored 20-20. He scored 20-some points with 20 rebounds, but he's good on a real good team.
Parker and Wiggins are they're 6'8", more threes than fours. Randall's more a four than a three. Sullinger's, he's a four. He's not a three, but he's undersized.
But, right, and that's the problem with Sullinger. I love his game, but he's not tall enough. He can't block a shot. He's got to use his body. He's overweight, number one. He's 20 pounds overweight. Let's be real. You watch him run up and down the court. He should be a lot quicker. And for a guy who can't jump, when you think he would lose some weight to get in better shape,
Well,
he's a lug.
Bradley's a complimentary player. He's done a lot.
Bradley. I would keep Bradley.
Yeah, he's
and
done a
Olenek.
lot, but you're not going to pay Bradley $15 million a year. You can't.
No. Say you had Bradley and Olenek, and you got Parker and Randall. Just say, as someone, comparable to a Randall. A big, like the guy from Kansas. So you got those two guys, and then you had Parker and Olenek. It's not going to take you too long and then you have all those draft picks coming up. It's not going to take you too long to have an unbelievable team.
Right.
You move and guess what? Where are these players going to want to go? The West who went to Indiana when he had the chance to go to Celtics
Well,
Indiana.
they're going to have 10 draft picks over 5 years, but after they make all these trades, they might have 12 or 13 draft picks.
Right.
So then you can really start packaging things together.
Or maybe they can pick up a power forward who's like 6'10", who's a rebounder.
Well, it's too bad they didn't get West when they had the chance.
Well, and everybody said, why didn't he go to the Celtics? Because when Pierce and Garnett was still there and Allen was still there, he made the right move going to Indiana.
Right.
But, in the future, if the Celtics get a couple of good players, superstars, then those players are going to want to go to Boston. And then before you know it, for 10 years we can enjoy basketball again. And these people who are saying they want them to win,
Well,
I don't want to see it. I want to see them trade Green because Green's not going to be part of a great team.
Well, last night, they're in overtime, or going toward overtime, and Washington had whatever play they ran, they got a perfect isolation. Nene was probably a 17-footer straight away, and he missed it by a mile. It wasn't even close. It was a brick. Went, hit on the plate on the right side of the basket. He's better than that. It was almost like he was missing on purpose.
Well, what things have you seen lately? Let's go back to anything you want to talk about. What has kind of bothered you the most? High school, college, pros?
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse as far as the high school situation. You and I have coached for a long time. Each of us has coached well over 10 years. We have a real passion for basketball. We want to see kids be successful. I like to see it that if the kids are if you have to win one game to save your life, I want the kids to be able to play quality basketball, high-intensity basketball, and get the strategic input to win that one game. And I don't know what the future is
How
here.
much does it bother you? Now, how much does it bother you knowing that players are kids you've helped get to a certain point? How much does it bother you when you know that they're not getting the coaching they should be getting?
Well, I take it really seriously. I wrote the book, The Simple Guide to Girls Basketball, because I have a passion for basketball. You can't fake a 318-page book, and there's got to be something in there worthwhile. But the subtitle of the book is called The Game is for the Players. So it's not about you or I. It's about these young people developing into productive citizens, being successful in business or whatever field of endeavor, music, drama, whatever they want to do, and using the skills they learn from sports into their future careers, because they're not going to be playing professional sports.
Well, let me ask you a question, too. The one thing that bothers me, and I really don't know the answer to this. I mean, I see certain players, and I know what they have to keep working on to get to become stars in high school. I know exactly what they have to work on. I know physically they're ready to play. And, there's a number of players that I'm looking at that where the new coaches, and I'm not blaming them necessarily, because they may not know these players. They don't know these players as well as we do.
Right.
And we know what they have to work on. And how do you feel when you know they're just set aside?
I want to ask every single player who watches, has at any level your coach said, what is your go-to move? What is your counter? And name 4 ways that you intend to score the basketball. I don't mean theoretically, I'm a three-point shooter when you're a 6'2" girl and you've never made an outside shot. What 4 ways you're going to score the basketball, and how are you going to be consistently successful with a go-to and counter move? And if you don't have the go-to and counter move, and you can't explain what it is, how are you going to score the basketball? And we said this before, it's really hard to be successful unless you can score the basketball.
Well, how do you feel about, I'm just talking about people I've talked to. How do you feel about people who are not getting the right coaching, not going over situations to make themselves better?
I think you need an integrated system where if you're the head coach, you've got to have a system that goes all the way down to the 4th grade. You have to get people to buy into it. You have to sell that. You have to be a leader. You have to go to the community. You have to be popular with the kids. You have to be attractive to the parents, the families, and really be somebody who's a dynamic person that will bring the program into the future. Maybe we have that. We have to see. Well, I've enjoyed seeing you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.